Hello everyone and welcome back to another end of week chat. I just wanted to say I love you 3000 because there are 3000 plus of you now, and that is absolutely incredible. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for those who have been sticking around with me since last year, and for everyone who keeps dropping by daily to leave supportive comments, to like the videos, and to say that they're just having a good time enjoying the videos that I'm making. All of you, old and new, I really appreciate you being here, and it's absolutely amazing because it's really helping me to push to keep going and to keep growing as a channel and as a community, and I just really appreciate it. So we're here at the end of the week, where I hope you guys are looking after yourselves and having a great time, because we're all trying to do that as much as possible. And I wanted to have a brief 3,000 subscribers check-in and provide a bit of an about me. And ironically, I was thinking about trying to do an about me when I hit 1,000 subscribers back in January, and time has kind of gotten away from me a little bit. Everything is very, very busy, very hectic in my life. There's a lot going on where gaming and YouTube and providing content for you guys and interacting with you guys is probably just like such a good positive highlight of my life. So I know that there's like quite a few of you that are like reaching out, being like, hey, make sure you're looking after yourself and all of that sort of stuff, and I'm trying for the most part, but like doing all these videos, doing YouTube, providing this like experience for all of you is something that actually makes me genuinely happy. So I want to keep doing that as much as possible. And again, I've mentioned this in the previous couple of end of week chat videos, is like I'm still wanting to push myself to do more different types of content when I can get the time. It is challenging and hard when working a full-time day job at the same time, because that is taking up more and more time and weighing on me a lot more as I work through that job. But obviously I'm trying to give as much as possible to YouTube and to you guys, and to have a great time doing so, because this is where my happiness is at the moment. So I have quite a lot of questions and things that I've written up to go through as a bit of an about me, to, I guess, help you understand why I like the things that I like, my way of like thinking, like my exposure to particular things, like and yeah, just to know a bit more about me. So essentially, let's start with the basics. Is I am 25 years old. Bada bing, bada boom. I know that I look like I'm in my late 30s. I have always looked older than I am. Yes, I am 25. I'll be 26 this year. I'm a mid-90s kid, so a lot of what I grew up with and have been exposed to is very much based in the late 90s, early 2000s sort of thing. And a lot of you are like, I like your accent, where you from? And I am from Australia. I've been in Australia all of my life, except for the first 18 months, where I was actually born in England. So I was born in the UK, but I came over here with my family permanently. So I have been raised by a lot of English-related like stuff. Like my mum spent primarily most of her life in England, so a lot of that has rubbed off on me. But also, I've only really been exposed to people around me in my life in Australia. So I've been in Australia for basically 99% of my life, and that's the basic stuff. How old am I? Where did I come from? How did I exist? Am I an alien from another world? No, I am not, unfortunately. But yeah, I've written up some things, so I'm going to try and jump into it in some sort of cohesive order. So there'll probably be some cuts in here as I figure stuff out. But yeah, I've been asked quite a few questions, so we'll jump in essentially where I've been asked like to do like my top games, movies, books, anime, like whatever, like things that I enjoy, and what are my favorites. Starting off with like games, it's really hard when I try to list favorite stuff because my mind kind of goes blank, and I'm like, we'll just list what comes to mind. In no particular order either. Like there's stuff here all over the place, and even stuff that I've played on the channel that has definitely earned a spot in my top list, you know. So again, in no particular order, so it'll just be like random games as they kind of pop into my head or as I've like adjusted the list over time. But like my one of my favorites is Bioshock. Bioshock 1 especially. I did enjoy both 2 and Infinite, but Bioshock 1 is like the greatest. Fable, The Lost Chapters, and Fable 2 are incredible. I'm probably also not going to go too in depth on why I love the games that I do, but we can certainly have another discussion about that at another time, or I can even do like some reviews or sort of video essay type content on these games and why I love them, maybe. But essentially, just to run off through a list for time, is Fable 1 and 2, Doom 2016, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. I never played 11 because I was not a PC or online kid growing up at all. It was primarily on a console. I rarely got exposed to anything that was like PC or online related until I was much older. So I never got into WoW, I never got into RuneScape, I didn't understand online lingo stuff. I was a very sheltered individual on my PlayStation. And then later I got the Game Boy Advance for Tactics Advance, which is definitely one of my favorite Final Fantasy games also. And 7 Remake, Part 1 at least. So those are my favorites of the Final Fantasy series. Everything else I haven't played or is not on my favorites list. Kingdom Hearts 2 specifically, just a very big part of my childhood was spent in that game. It's very impactful on my life. God of War 2018, the not reboot but like a reimagining of the series, and definitely my game of the year for 2018. So well deserved that it won that. But also Red Dead Redemption 2 was and is an absolutely mind-blowing experience. That was just such a beautiful game, and I'm giving it a few years before I go back to it because I want to replay the story again and take my time in it once more, because Red Dead Redemption 2, mind-blowing stuff. The first Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, I also played that game for the first time in 2018, and is like one of the more beautiful experiences that I've had with video games. In 2018 specifically, that was a very interesting year for me and video games because it was a particularly interestingly dark time, and I was also very burnt out on playing online multiplayer games, and I turned to going into a single player focused direction where I was like, I want to finish single player games because I'm playing these online games, I'm not finishing games, and it doesn't leave me feeling good about playing video games. And I stopped playing games for multiplayer games for and I went to single player games, and in a week I completed Rise of the Tomb Raider, Doom 2016, and Beyond Good and Evil. And Beyond Good and Evil and Doom 2016 are on this list of favorite video games. Beyond Good and Evil is next, which is what reminded me of that, because 2018 is the year that I did Ni no Kuni. I bought a Switch and I was playing Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was literally the cure for my depression. Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games I've ever played, so I'm skipping ahead because that's also on this list. We'll just knock that off the list now. Breath of the Wild, my one and only Zelda game that I've played and completed, and one of my favorite games of all time. The Jak and Daxter series, kind of as a whole, but primarily the first game and the third game, because I didn't play the second one that much, and I kind of want to play it a bit more. to see how I feel about it. Fallout New Vegas, specifically. I really loved playing the Fallout series and a little bit of the Elder Scrolls series as well when I was growing up. Like, that's where I spent a lot of time in those Bethesda RPGs and those worlds, and I was obsessed with Fallout. And I remember playing Fallout 3 and New Vegas back then and going like, wow, all I want with Fallout in the future is Fallout in VR and an online Fallout. And we got both of those things, and I could not care less about them. which does kind of suck a little bit, because I was like, dude, imagine Fallout in VR, and we have Fallout 4 in VR. And it's like, okay. And now I'm just like, Fallout, like, but co-op with other people in the wasteland. And we got that with Fallout 76. And I'm like, I just can't care less about them, unfortunately. Because, like, I just know that, like, teenage me, if I was given those games at that point in time, would have been just, like, the happiest person alive. But interests change, things shift, all of that kind of jazz. Onto the next ones is, these are games that I played for, this is what I actually played on the channel, is Silent Hill 2 and 3, specifically. I love Silent Hill 1 to 4, but when I'm thinking of, like, favorite video games, I just really wanted to, like, focus on 2 and 3 specifically. Silent Hill 2, obviously, and then Silent Hill 3 for its own reasons. Like, I heavily enjoyed what 3 improved upon over 2, and I really love Heather as a character. She's really great. She was, like, the highlight of that game for me. Metal Gear Solid. Just Metal Gear Solid. Which game? You'll never know. The whole series? Just one game? 2 games? I don't know. I just love Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid, just as a title, is in my favorite games. Honestly, I'm obsessed. If I really had to, like, think of, like, which ones were the ones that were my favorites, so obviously Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid 1, and Metal Gear Solid 3, if I had to choose 3 games. But also Metal Gear Solid 5, which I'm currently playing, is super enjoyable, especially from a gameplay perspective. I'm having a great time playing that as well. We've got some other games like Firewatch, Ghosts of Tsushima, which I'm still actually currently in the process of doing. I'm currently in the process of playing that game. Halo 3, I'm just picking a specific Halo title, like Halo 3 and Halo 3 ODST. That sort of era. That's where I spent most of my time playing Halo. I did play Halo 1 and 2, but Halo 3 was, like, where most of my time went. We got Limbo and Inside by Playdead Games. Both of those together I played on the channel recently. And just, like, really refreshing. And I had great times in those games. I've got a few Pokemon games that were my favorites, like Emerald, Leaf Green, Heart Gold, and Red Rescue Team, specifically. Resident Evil is in my favorites, with the Resident Evil remake of the first game, Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 4 is not in my favorite games. I think people who grew up with it or are exposed to it at the time probably more in love with it for obvious reasons. It doesn't quite hit my favorites. I really like what the original games, like 1 and 2, did for me. I really liked those, and Resident Evil 7, obviously. And I'm currently in the process of playing Village, so unsure if it's going to sit in there as well. It might, but 7 especially does. I've also got Soma, which I played on the channel recently as well. And by recently, I have no understanding of how time works. I think Soma was probably, I don't know. Soma feels like it was like 6 months ago now. I don't even know. I say recently, but who knows. But Soma, absolutely fantastic. And it was just like one that I was like, yeah, this is on my list. I'll just jump on this one and see how we go. Very glad that I did. Jedi Fallen Order. We've also got The Last of Us 1 and 2, because I really enjoyed both games. The first one more than the second, but I still really enjoyed the second game, The Witcher 3, Wolfenstein 2, and right at the end, which is a recent addition due to the completion of the game, is Dark Souls, the first Dark Souls game. Dark Souls has definitely instantly become one of my favorite games of all time. So that's like a list on favorite video games. I was like, I'm not going to limit myself on like a top 5 or a top 10 or something. I'm just like, let's just run it off in things that come to mind, you know? So that's like favorite games. If we want to do like favorite anime stuff, I've got like a tiny list here. I haven't had like much of an exposure to it, but I've been trying to hit like the popular or the well-known ones, or the ones that are like highly recommended. But I have a really long backlog for everything. Because time is something that I don't have. It's something that I don't have enough of, unfortunately. But in terms of anime, we've got like Akira is one of my favorites of all time, the movie, and I'm actually trying over here. I've recently picked up the whole 35th anniversary box set, but I'm trying to read the manga for the first time, so I'm like slowly making my way through that, because I love the art style, I love the music, I love the movie, but I also want to get like the full story from the manga, so I'll be working my way through that when I can. I can hit like the ones that I grew up with, which was like Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, Pokemon, you know, like I watch and love those. Like I'm actually watching the Digimon Adventure 2020, like the one that's out at the moment, which is actually really great. It's really neat. It's like a reboot of the original. Has some shortcomings, but it's really fun, and I've kind of just like been catching up and binging it, and I really enjoy that. But getting into like other ones is like ones that I watched like when I wasn't growing up and I was like actually specifically looking for anime to watch. Is I've watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, One Punch Man, Death Note, Berserk, Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, Samurai Champloo, like anything Miyazaki for Studio Ghibli. But yeah, like I have a lot to get through to, and like my favorite animes out of that list, if I have to pick like my like top one, is like Cowboy Bebop and Akira. I like my tops, but then like Berserk, Death Note, and like Full Metal Alchemist definitely are the honorable mentions that come just below that. I've watched the 1997 version and the 2011 versions of the Berserk anime, and I just wish that they would cover more, because I'm really trying to resist the urge to get into the manga of that, because it's so long and it's ongoing and it's constantly on hiatus, and I'm trying to make a promise to myself that I won't engage with the Berserk manga until the story is finished and I know that it's complete. Otherwise I'll just make myself miserable. Also, another honorable mention in that list is probably the Castlevania series on Netflix. Even though I've never played a Castlevania game, I really enjoyed what I've watched of the Netflix series, which is only 2 seasons so far. I'm behind because, again, time. We can move into like my favorite movies, which is, I've made a list again in no particular order, and it's all over the place because like my taste in things, in everything from games to music to movies to anything, is so varied. I really enjoy like a whole bunch of things, which is both a good and a bad thing. But favorite movies in no particular order. I'm just going to run through this list as well. We'll do both Blade Runner and its sequel, 2049, Gladiator, Fargo, Big Lebowski, Leon the Professional, The Usual Suspects, Whiplash, Memento, Aliens, The Thing, Parasite, Old Boy, the 2003 version, not the English version, Kill Bill, both Volume 1 and 2, The Matrix, anything Monty Python, I was raised on that, Pan's Labyrinth, Grand Budapest Hotel, Mad Max Fury Road. Shout out to Logan specifically, out of Marvel movies, or the X-Men movies, is Logan specifically. Monsters Inc., because why not? And a guilty pleasure of mine is actually Tron Legacy. When I first watched Tron Legacy, I think I watched it 6 times in the following couple of weeks. I was obsessed with it. One of the best soundtracks, of course. Thanks to Daft Punk. And then in terms of like a series of films, like I like Lord of the Rings, I like Star Wars, I like the MCU, I like the DCEU to an extent. Some movies, but that one is very hit and miss for me. Mostly I really enjoy the Dark Knight trilogy, which is like the Nolan films, before like the current DCEU as we know it. So that's like a list of favorite movies that I enjoy. There's obviously more, and there's ones that I've watched maybe like once years ago that I really liked that I probably need to watch again to like refresh my opinion on, sort of thing. In terms of like favorite books, I'm listening to audiobooks here and there when I have time, mostly working my way through the Star Wars canon books. I think if I actually pull up my Audible account. Yeah, guys, this video is sponsored by Audible. You can listen to books on the fly. I've got a bunch that are downloaded, ready to listen to, but I like listened to like the Ahsoka novel, the Dooku, Jedi Lost, and Master and Apprentice, which was like the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan story, and they're very good. I've got all the Thrawn books that I still need to listen to. I'm even downloading the Lord of the Rings to try and read, to listen to those audiobooks, because I've failed many times to read the books when I've had them. And then I'm trying to read the Halo books as well, like the original, like older ones first, just to see how I go. And I'm currently listening to Light of the Jedi, which is one of the new books from the High Republic series that they're working on. So that's a work in progress. I'm not sure how I feel about the High Republic yet, because I've sort of barely listened to the book. But it's currently in process. I read a lot when I was younger, like when I was a kid, like sort of like the younger reading books. Primarily, I read through all of Harry Potter, back when Harry Potter was good, and J.K. Rowling wasn't the way that she was. But yeah, Harry Potter was great as a kid. So that's kind of like favorite stuff. But like when it's just like, I don't know. I like what I like, and I haven't been reading as much because, again, it's just another thing that I don't have time for. That seems to be a reoccurring theme. I also have questions that move away from favorite things, but it is kind of all over the place. So we'll probably just I'll probably just go in order of how I've written stuff, because it might just be the easiest. I was asked if there was specific content creators that inspired me to do YouTube. I was mostly inspired around like the Let's Play boom of like 2012 kind of thing. So I've always wanted to do like YouTube and streaming or sharing gameplay with others, like for the past like decade. And I was inspired by like Game Grumps and like PewDiePie and like people from that era who were, focusing on like just fun, entertaining, gameplay related content. More recently, I really love Maximilian Dude. He's just like a really passionate member of the gaming community and YouTube community. Obviously, he's like primarily on Twitch now, making bank, living his best life, and he's just a great dude. But like, he's primarily like a fighting game YouTuber, and I don't play fighting games. I've tried to, and I'm interested in them. I suck at them, but like, I will watch him talk about anything, because the way that he talks about like fighting games, or even just like games or media in general, like just very, very passionate. And I'll even like rewatch videos of his multiple times just to listen to him talking about it. Like, he did a video talking about Final Fantasy XI and like his experience with that. And I've never played Final Fantasy XI. I'm obviously a big Final Fantasy fan, and I'm sad that I kind of missed out on that period because it was like an online game. But just hearing how he would like recount stuff so clearly about it, and how much of his life was spent on that game. It's just such a great story, like just as an example of like how I can just listen to him talk about stuff, which is great. Video Game Donkey is a mastermind. I will love him until the end of time. He's just great, and his comedic timing is one of the most perfect things about his videos, and always consistently amazing. Other, like, whether it's like inspirations or just people that I enjoy watching, is like I really like Easy Allies, Mars, Sarah Key, Radbrad from time to time, who still has major success doing Let's Plays because of the way that he has things structured. I enjoyed DB Geek's Halo journey. I enjoy Call Me Kevin as well. He like inspires me to create like shorter, more entertaining videos that I'd like to do one day. Shirley Curry is obviously one of the most amazing little grandmas out there, who's just a big Elder Scrolls fan. Also Nakey Jakey. I relate to him on a lot of things, and overall, like, he's just like a really great dude. Like, you could be friends with that dude. Nakey Jakey is great. And super talented, super funny. So those are like some specific like content creators that I really enjoy. And then we go into a long list of other questions. So we'll run through that now. Of if you could design your own game, what would you make? And I said that I would probably make a PS1 era Final Fantasy title on today's hardware. So like 4K pre-rendered backgrounds, high resolution character models, but like an emphasis on story and gameplay over the graphics sort of deal. Like the graphics would be good because it would be on like modern hardware, but it would be like take those Final Fantasy PS1 games and just like put it in the modern era. You know, because there's just so much content packed into those games. But nowadays, because there's such a push and focus on graphical fidelity and how pretty everything looks and how big everything is, it really can take away from the amount of content you can get in a game, I think. So if I was to design a game, it would be like something that would harken back to that Final Fantasy PlayStation 1 era, for sure. I think that was actually in relation to how has my experience been as a successfully growing YouTube channel. For a few years now, it's always seemed so dire to me. Like, it always seems like YouTube is finding new ways to like make things harder on their content creators. Sometimes it sounds like you are basically doomed if you don't play the algorithm game and what is popular at the time. So it's actually crazy. Like, nothing I expected whatsoever, and the growth, especially in like the past few months, has blown me away, like more than it has before. The growth has been steadily increasing, and it's all just been like natural as people have gravitated to like different games and decided to stick around. So I'm super grateful. But yeah, I really love for YouTube like to get to a point where it's like my main thing, or just like content creation and like gaming content with you guys is like my main thing. Like making Let's Play contents on Twitch, or like reviews or analysis videos, and like and being able to stream as well. Like, I want to be able to do all those things. So being a growing YouTube channel has been certainly really interesting, because it makes me think about my future a lot more, and what I'm actually going to be doing on the channel, and sort of factoring that into my plans going forward, because I really want this to be a thing. So yeah, it's been crazy, but it's been fun. And I can't wait to see where I'll be in January next year compared to January this year. Like, it took me 12 months to hit 1,000, and then it's taken me 5 months, like 4-5 months after that to get 2,000 more, and it's mind-blowing. So I can't wait to see how it's going to continue to grow, and me continuing to do what I want to do, you know. We also got a couple of other questions of any lore behind my username, or like my channel name, but not at all. It's just a funny name that I created when I was like really young in primary school, and it stuck, and then it's just become my username in things like ever since. Like, it's my Xbox gamer tag and PSN and all of that stuff. So it's just and it's pronounced Mapokalops. I have heard almost every pronunciation under the sun playing online with people who really try. Mapo is a really easy way to shorten it. But yeah, it's Mapokalops, and it's just a funny childhood name that kind of stuck. And that's it. I got asked by someone in my Discord recently if like my friends, family, work friends, are they supportive of YouTube or not? My mum, definitely. My family's pretty small. It's mostly just my mum and my sister, and they are very supportive. Love what I'm doing. Friends is an interesting point. I think I definitely have some friends that I've been seeing here and there, like pop up in comments or like here and there. So I can see that there's a bit of support coming from there. But most of the support's just come from you guys, which has been insane. And it's really interesting to think about that. Like there will be people that don't even know me, or like I don't know them, and they are more supportive of me and my stuff than anyone that I've ever known, which is really interesting in how that works. You know, is there are friends that are definitely supportive, and there are friends who are not, or just kind of are very absent or indifferent to the whole thing. But primarily the support comes from like people that are just like complete strangers who are just like, they just genuinely want to see people succeed. So I really appreciate the support from all of you. That's like the main support and the main reason that I'm doing all of this stuff. Obviously two main reasons being like, one, I love this to death and I love this and I love doing this and I'm going to keep doing it, but also your support has definitely been like nicely reaffirming that it's like a good idea to keep doing it, instead of, you know, I'm like, I haven't been doing this, working myself like crazy and like pumping out the amount of content that I have with nothing to show for it, essentially. So getting that sort of gratification is very nice to go, cool, I can keep doing this because it's working, and I really like that because I'm just being me and it is yielding results, and I really like that. We've also got some more, which is like, what is the first game that you can remember playing as a kid? There was probably like a few. It was definitely Final Fantasy VII, but and it wasn't bought for me. Like my parents had a PlayStation 1, and they had Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Tomb Raider, Music 2000, and Final Fantasy VII. Those are the ones that I remember, and I've got them on my shelf. Like the original Tomb Raider, the Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Final Fantasy VII, and Music 2000, back when it was $77. $77 to make your own music with PlayStation 1 sounds. So those were like the original games that I remember playing as a kid. But Final Fantasy VII was definitely like that big major exposure to gaming. And a cool one to start on, and it's really kind of inspired my taste in video games going forward. I've got some other like questions of other childhood favorites. Have they stood the test of time as well? So childhood favorites is an interesting topic. I didn't have all the money in the world. Our family didn't have all the money in the world growing up, so I was actually quite limited to what I was playing. So like there were those games that I just mentioned, but like I actually got a lot of game variety through demo discs from magazines. Like I think I actually have a bunch of them on the shelf as well, just easy to grab to. Like this one's probably the most nostalgic one for me. Like the Essential PlayStation magazine that had like demos for Parappa the Rapper, Overboard, Croc, Agent Armstrong, like Ridge Racer, all that kind of stuff. And then I've just got like discs of demos and stuff, just in cases, just to keep the discs okay. But yeah, that was actually where I played a lot of games, and then it wasn't until like I got my first job, where I was actually able to buy the full versions of those demo games that I played as a kid, which was really cool. So I like bought the full versions, and those still stand the test of time because it's mainly nostalgia. It's mainly nostalgia based. But there's games like Future Cop, LAPD on there, the Disney's Hercules action game, like those are also ones that I got. There's a game that I specifically, because I really love, I don't know why specifically, but I really loved Aladdin as a kid, like the Disney movie. So when I got Aladdin in the Zira's Revenge on PlayStation 1 for Christmas one year, I absolutely lost my mind and ignored all of my other presents, ran off to go and play it. I think I have that on home video somewhere, if I can source that one day. But it's pretty funny. But that was like the sort of like the PlayStation 1 era. When our PlayStation 1 eventually broke, we were without one for quite a while, and then it came to the day of the year where everything was saved because it was Christmas time, and that's when things happened. And we got a PS2, and around that time I was primarily playing things like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy X, later Final Fantasy XII. Those have definitely stood the test of time for me. The Jak and Daxter series, the Lord of the Rings games, which are probably some of the best movie licensed games to exist. Two Towers and Return of the King specifically are just incredible. The first one, The Fellowship of the Ring, seemed like more based on the novel, and then they went into the movies after that. Star Wars Battlefront as well, 1 and 2. Always loved Star Wars Battlefront growing up, and also Episode 3, the one that was based on the movie. I ended up gaming on another Christmas. I got like a Game Boy Advance SP, so that allowed me to get into like Pokemon. I got into Ruby and Sapphire, and I think as a kid I was able to figure out that Ruby and Sapphire were pretty much the same game with the different legendaries. So I actually ended up at school trading a copy of Ruby for Leaf Green, which was probably one of the smartest business decisions I made as a kid, because then I got to experience Leaf Green, and that's one of my favorites. Let's not talk about the time that I traded my whole deck of Yu-Gi-Oh cards for a big packet of Juicy Fruits. We won't talk about that. We're only going to talk about the good business decisions that I made as a kid that I don't regret. At one point, I also ended up with a copy of Red Rescue Team, which I mentioned before became one of my absolute favorites, but I haven't played the rest of the Mystery Dungeon games yet. And then Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, as I also mentioned, definitely stood the test of time. And then at one point, this is where the Xbox kind of part of my life came in, is I got given a original Xbox from a family friend. And that gave me exposure to some particular games that I really played and enjoyed growing up, which was like Dungeons and Dragons Heroes, Tomb Raider Legend, Lara Croft in that game, Tomb Raider Legend, my god. I got to experience like the Xbox Star Wars games like Republic Commando and Jedi Academy, and then obviously Halo 1 and 2 and the first Fable game. Fable and Halo really ended up being the reason that I'm still primarily on Xbox today as well. So I would say that definitely stands the test of time. But yeah, we've got some talking about like in terms of the channel specifically. Now that you've played a lot more games on the channel, what are the highlights for you? My channel highlights are definitely the first experience that I had with Silent Hill 2. Seeing how well loved this playthrough has been is like mind blowing to me. That it's been incredible how many people have dropped by to give some support and love for that game in my playthrough, and I really appreciate it. And that's kind of why I pushed myself to pump out that Silent Hill 2 analysis video as well, which was also just incredibly rewarding, and I really enjoyed putting that work in to do that. Metal Gear series as a whole, for sure, as I am quite clearly obsessed with it. And then Dark Souls Remastered was an absolute joy, and the amount of support and positivity there has been a massive reason why I feel comfortable continuing the series on the channel. Dark Souls and Metal Gear Solid both have very passionate communities, so I'm grateful to have mostly the positive side that are happy for a new fan to join the series, as opposed to like the small group of negative ones that are trying to bring it down because they don't like how I play it for my first time, you know? Because I'm sure that they were experts when they first started. And then, what do you think the best Let's Play I've done is from a viewer perspective? And I think from a viewer perspective, if I'm to take like the numerous comments I've received into account, it's definitely Dark Souls. An overwhelming amount of comments stating, in their opinion, that it's the best Dark Souls playthrough on YouTube, which I refuse to believe, but it is wild to hear that. So I think from a viewer perspective, it would definitely be Dark Souls Remastered. That's been absolutely insane and very unexpected, but very appreciated. This is sort of like a follow-up, not even necessarily a follow-up, but it's similar to the question of if you could design a game, where it's saying like, if you could make any game a reality, whether it be original or part of an established series, what would it be? And there's another question asked later that I thought this question was, and then I realized it's not, so I changed what I had to say. Is I believe making any game a reality means if you could like make a game happen that's either upcoming or, you know, cancelled or anything, or like something that you want, if you could make any game a reality. So I can't pick just one because that's impossible, as always, but I did knock off like a bit of a list where I said Star Wars 13 or the original Battlefront 3 to be completed, like those two cancelled games that never went ahead. I would love them to see the light of day, or at least, you know, the open world Star Wars RPG of our dreams with modern gameplay improvements. That being said, I haven't played KOTOR yet, 1 or 2, so I'm really excited to to get to those. But when I'm like, oh, I really want like a awesome open world Star Wars RPG, and then my brain goes, yeah, go play KOTOR and see how you feel. It's on my list. We're currently doing Mass Effect, so I might have to wait to clear out that schedule before I get to another BioWare RPG. Next, what I would will into existence is the full Final Fantasy VII Remake in all parts complete in my hands right now. Please and thank you. No waiting years for each part to come out. I just want the complete experience right now. And remake Final Fantasy VIII while you're at it, and I'll take that too, because a Final Fantasy VIII remake would be insane. Also on the Final Fantasy topic, Final Fantasy Versus 13, the cancelled and reworked original concept that became the whole different beast that is Final Fantasy 15, which was just primarily built upon the foundation of Versus 13. I want to see that realized as well. Moving away from Final Fantasy, to start, the Metal Gear Solid 1 remake in Fox Engine. You know, Metal Gear Solid 1 remake. I'd love the whole series in the Fox Engine, but imagine just that first game remade, or Metal Gear 1 and 2. Metal Gear 1 and 2 as well, just the whole series, and Kojima to regain full control over the IP under his studio, you know? And then, similar to Metal Gear, we'll move into Silent Hill. I'll take first person, I'll take Team Silent style camera, just a Silent Hill game that blows everyone's minds, you know, that earns its place among the greats. We need a Silent Hill game. We'll just have to see how this year goes, guys. E3's coming up. Konami was supposed to be there, but then they pulled out, and I don't think that we were going to get anything anyway, but, you know, we can only dream. We can only dream. Next, what's your biggest all-time game character crush, if you have one, and what about a real-world celebrity? In terms of character crushes, realistically, there's probably many, because I grew up playing games with like a lot of strong female characters that I really enjoyed. And growing up, that probably helped form my taste in women in general. But if we're going to go to the biggest all-time character, it's definitely Tifa, and that's the end of that. And then in terms of a real-world celebrity, I'm sure it's fluctuated a lot as I've gotten older, but I will confidently state Elizabeth Olsen, and we will go about our day. And that's that. What's the worst game I've ever played? This is a hard one. I might just go for something from recent memory. That was just a massive letdown, and that would be Anthem. It gave me a headache to even play, let alone how badly they fumbled it, because it's a real shame. It had a massive potential, and I think that's something that I really get sad on, is when there's something that literally has massive potential and it just doesn't meet it. It's like, it's just so much more disappointing. You know, you just wish that it never even existed, because just getting something that misses the mark of what it could easily be is super disappointing. Duke Nukem Forever was also pretty bad. I think one's a pretty obviously universal bad game. But I'd have to really dig into my brain to think of something more. It would most likely end up being something from the PS1 era that I don't really have the nostalgia goggles for. So that's on the worst game I've ever played. Moving into my favorite game developer studio. And we'll do my favorites, because I never settle on a top choice. So we do like Santa Monica Studios. Very grateful for them doing God of War, and I can't wait for God of War Ragnarok. CD Projekt Red. The Witcher 3 is incredible, and that is why I do love them. Cyberpunk 2077 has certainly had its issues and been in the media and entirely shat on, but something that was brought to my attention recently that people were talking about is like Cyberpunk 2077 released in a better state than Skyrim did when Skyrim first came out, and Skyrim is now considered one of the best games of all time, either through opinion or memes or re-releases or anything, just by status of the game, how renowned it is. But like Cyberpunk 2077 definitely had problems, especially on the older consoles, because they're so old now. But Cyberpunk 2077 looks and feels great. I have only played it for a small amount of time because I actually want to wait and hold off for the enhancement for the Series X before I continue the game, because I know it'll be a really big undertaking for me to try and replay it when the enhancement comes out, so I'm just deciding to hold off instead. But nevertheless, I think the studio has probably learned a lot of lessons from Cyberpunk going forward, but I still do really enjoy them as a developer. Squaresoft, rest in peace, responsible for some of the greatest things ever in RPGs and Final Fantasy. Square Enix, to an extent, has certainly done some interesting things, but I think if we're going to pick out of the two, Squaresoft was different to Square Enix, and Squaresoft is my favourite. We've also got Naughty Dog and Insomniac, for sure. So that's in my favourites. Honourable mention would be NetherRealm Studios. Like again, I've mentioned just before when I was talking about like Maximilian, that I'm not even a huge fan of fighting games, and I don't play the recent ones. I've tried to, but I just love what NetherRealm Studios do. I just love what they do. So honourable mention. I also wanted to include developers that I have loved to death in the past but have fallen off the list, because there are ones that I used to really love, like Bungie. As much as I love Halo and Destiny still to an extent, like choices have been made that soured me on them, and that's simple as that. Bungie, big ups and downs, you know. Bethesda, we love to hate them. And Rockstar, they're all over the place, and I want them to be up there, especially with Red Dead Redemption 2, but like their culture, along with like the milking of GTA Online, really knows no bounds. So that kind of prevents me from doing that. Next question is, if you could live in a video game world, what would it be? Now, this is what I thought when I got the question, if you could make any game a reality. But when I read this question, I was like, okay, cool, it makes sense. So if I could live in a video game world, you might notice a trend here, but I really like Final Fantasy, and I would live in Final Fantasy VII, 100%. The world of Gaia, living in Midgar. Like, in real life, I walk through my city at night playing, like, Midgar-related Final Fantasy VII music. Like, I'm on, like, a tram or a train, and I'm walking through alleyways and just, like, parts of the city, and I'm playing those Final Fantasy VII-related tracks that would relate so hard to it, and I just feel like I'm there. So I just really like to imagine myself in the world. I wish I could just like mash up Final Fantasy 7, 8, 10, and somehow 12, even though they all clash. 7 and 8 fit together a bit more, but I just love like the established worlds that they have, and I wish that I could walk around them. If I could also extend that and choose a movie world to live in, I'd probably choose Blade Runner. I don't know why, I'm just really attracted to the futuristic or like lived-in sci-fi aesthetic. So that would be if I would pick a movie. An honorable mention for a video game as well would probably be Destiny, because I do think it has one of the most beautiful worlds. If we remove like the doom and gloom of what's going on in the story, the environmental design is one of Destiny's strongest points. So it would just be a beautiful world to live in, you know. I got asked what kind of music am I into aside from the Final Fantasy soundtrack. So I've already been called out in the same round of questions. Thank you very much. I listen to a lot. And I have many playlists that cover multiple decades. But my variety, my taste is so all over the place. Like I really love like 60s, 70s, and 80s like sort of rock music. That's really good. I really like 90s hip hop. I really love EDM in recent years. I love like sort of like dark and gritty electronic music as well. I like indie music. I like sad music. You know, like I like music that is nostalgic for me from the 90s and the 2000s. I like a lot of different stuff, but primarily I do enjoy listening to like heavier music and electronic music, and then I just really love video game soundtracks as well, so it just all comes together. It's a huge variety. Again, I haven't even really given that one much thought, because that's even harder to choose favorites. But like, not sure if I don't even think I actually wrote down my favorite music, unfortunately. I haven't written that down. I think that was like on the to-do list. But yeah, it's hard picking favorite music. Some of my favorite bands, I'll probably try and just say my favorite bands off the top of my head is like Alice in Chains, Porcupine Tree, Incubus, I really love, Pink Floyd, David Bowie. I don't know. Let's just leave it at that. That's what you get. That's your taste of music off the top of my head. We've also got what is a game or film that you think is super underrated and recommend people check out. And in terms of that, I'm like, underrated, I'm actually unsure. If it's something I find underrated, that might just be because of my bad taste. Go watch Small Soldiers. That's the best movie of all time. And ignore IGN's 4 out of 10 for SpongeBob Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. It's one of the best. That's what you'll get from me. Am I still working on my art? Any plans to pursue that, or is it just a hobby? I spent a good 7 or 8 years heavily pursuing art as like a thing where I was like, this is going to be my main thing. Like, I did art before that, but this was when I was like, this is going to be the thing that I do. And I was spreading myself thin over the years on multiple hobbies, and I didn't know what I wanted to commit to, like where most of my energy was going. It was just like I was spreading everything across multiple things, so I was doing nothing efficiently, you know, just working on little things, and then I would just end up doing nothing. Like, I'd wanted to do art and photography and music, because I'm like a very creative person, I also really love like film and cinematography, but I didn't have like the means to get into that one very much, so which is probably a good thing. But like gaming, I've loved since the beginning of time, and I've always wished around, like I said before, like that 2012 period of YouTube that I was doing something like that. But like I think a lot of the reason why I didn't do that at the time is couldn't afford equipment, and I was very self-conscious. I would have been able to make it work probably if I wasn't as self-conscious as I was, because, you know, there's a lot of memories there that I would have loved to have been like recorded and shared, to be honest, of growing up. So that got in the way of pursuing it. But you know, to stay on topic, I think about art and doing it a lot, but I just haven't picked up the pen, so to speak, and create something. Like, I'm proud of the things that I've made, but like I think that I burned myself out on it when I did a drawing a day challenge in 2016. I did a drawing a day challenge in 2016, where I essentially did a fully finished piece of work every day while working a full-time job in hospitality. So my life was a mess in that year, because it was crazy, because I was either working 9 to 5 or 3 till 11, or 11 till 6:30 a.m. on weekends, or like something like that. So I was all over the place in terms of when I was even awake to do those things. So I think that ended up kind of burning out my creative side for art. And then I also didn't really enjoy the commission work that I was doing. It wasn't work that I loved or really suited my style, which like confused me to a point, because I was like, oh, the pieces I'd be excited about would be transformed into something that I feel was like kind of basic and limiting. So it was like whenever I would do something that I was like excited about, but then they'd want to turn it into something kind of generic, I was like, it's not even my style, so therefore I'm not gonna enjoy it, you know? And then I only ever pursued like making shirts that had my art on it like once, and then I just didn't do it again, and I don't know why. Like, I have the means to do it, like especially now. I don't know, I just have a weird relationship with art right now. It's a bit love-hate. Like, I always think about drawing, but then I go to draw, and then my brain goes, I can't draw, and it's just a bit of a hurdle, unfortunately. I've also got asked some final questions to round this out, which is, what is the freakiest hell animal you've come across in Australia? I'm pretty thankful, actually, that I've only ever lived in like the suburbs of Australia. It doesn't get too bad where I am compared to like the country. So there's definitely some beasts down here, but I'm happy to keep away from them. Like, I've seen some big ass spiders and I really hate moths, and I've been out in the country sometimes and there's fucking huge moths that are terrorizing your entire existence, but like I've been pretty good to not experience any of those things firsthand. Would you say Australia is worth a visit from someone who isn't from there? I would say Australia is definitely worth a visit. It's super fun and I love it here. I've lived in 2 states of Australia while living here. One is more quiet and peaceful, that has a few big events a year where everybody wakes up from their nap, does a thing for a month, and then goes back to sleep. Whereas, you know, where I'm at now is actually pretty active and heavily populated with lots of things to do. Ironically, I'm actually very introverted, and I've like struggled to make or maintain friendships over here. It's a bit like, I don't know, the friendship groups are a bit like a clique, a bit cliquey, in a sense that it's hard to get into like already established groups that do their own thing. So I'm pretty used to feeling like an outsider in that regard. So I don't get out much in this lively city that I live in. We've also got, where in the world would you want to vacation to and check out? You've said Iceland or Japan for you, and I was like, definitely Japan for sure. I've wanted to do a USA trip from one side to the other, if I could ever take that much time out of my life to do it. I want to visit like New Zealand, Canada. I'd love to check out like Italy and the surrounding areas, like places in Europe that just have a lot of history to experience. Like that would just be insane. That would be insane. And the last question is your favorite meal, favorite snack, favorite drink, which is good timing because I'm about to go and have my lunch. But let's keep it simple. I love ramen. I love snacks, period. All snacks, any snacks are good snacks. And water should be everyone's favorite drink. And if water is not your favorite drink, think about it. Think about drinking water. Drinking water is important. Hydrate yourself. I have cooled my throat a couple of times this video and need to do it again. And that rounds out at, I'm just hitting the hour mark now on this one, which is longer than I actually thought, but I guess that I had more to talk about than I thought. I'm sorry if I have bored you with how I've put this one together. I don't really know how else to how else to do it. I was like, all right, I'll just structure all these questions and I'll run them off and I'll answer them. So if you've actually gotten through this one to the end, I just want to say thank you so much for sitting here and learning about me and getting these answers for the questions. Thank you so much for asking the questions and showing an interest in what's going on, because I'm really grateful for those of you that are not necessarily purely just here for the games and me playing the game that you want only, but you're also enjoying the person who's playing them. And I really like that. So yeah, I appreciate each and every one of you. Again, thank you so much for 3,000. I don't even know where I'll be by the end of the year. What should we do? Should we say let's get to 10k by the end of the year? Let's do that. 10k by the end of the year would be mind-blowing and insane. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. I can't wait to keep going and to keep playing more games. I hope you're enjoying what I'm playing at the moment, and I will see you in the next video.